can't put monetary value on our culture, on our history, and our representation. So I think that's incredibly important. However, I also do know that if you pay significant money for art, then it is like in your asset class as a valuable piece of asset. I think historically, art has proven as a hedge against inflation. About 10, 12, 15 years ago, the masters, Enwonwu sold for about 10, 12, 15,000 pounds, I believe. Today, easily they're selling for 200,000, 500,000, and £1 million. So it's an asset class that has returned great returns over the years, which has also created an illiquidity in the market. Most collectors, when they buy, unless they have to sell, which is maybe they have financial issues or they're restructuring their portfolios, do not sell. And most artists have a very limited number of works that they do in their lifetime. If you take a Yusuf Grillo, Uche Okeke, or Demas Enwonwu, for instance, I think they have less than 1,000 works collectively. And if it's all bought up, it's very likely that those works would not come to the market for a very long time. So it makes it harder for you to find those works. And with limited supply means greater demand, and of course, the value starts to go up as well. So it's a good problem, but it's also like a problem, so to speak.
With everything, we need to be, I guess, sure of our assets. If you buy a TV, you have a receipt, you have a warranty. If you buy a pair of shoes, you have a receipt, you have a warranty. In the case of our nascent art space, provenance becomes extremely important because it's, apart from your invoice, which I will speak about, it's essentially it's a proof of a connection. It's a proof of originality and authenticity, which is important. Of course, where you have, now that art is popular, as Niyi said, you also have moral hazards, so we have lots of fakes. So how do you determine if your work is original versus a fake? So it's important. Provenance is very important, especially because the marketplace is very vast. It's full of people like me who are independent private dealers, but it's also full of things like auction houses, which are highly regulated and also are not in the business of losing money, so they don't want to sell dud items. So provenance becomes extremely important. In the case of Nigeria, where I like to say we are pretty much regulating ourselves. The art industry globally is quite unregulated. And if the global art industry is unregulated, in Nigeria, it's extremely unregulated. And so one of the things I try to do and to preach is the idea of self-regulation. So you almost stand as an endorser, as a gallerist, as an advisor, even as a collector. You have to go the extra mile because we care about this. We care about the cultural heft of the art that we're collecting and selling. But we also care about the idea that because this thing is so important to us now, and we've invested this amount of money and time and love in it, we want to see a future. So we all are involved in this idea of proof and validation and provenance. And we all do that. I declare things as original. And when you think about the context of Africa and Nigeria in particular, I think we all understand that our names are very, very valuable, probably even more valuable than money. And so by the time I append my name to something and say it is true that I declare that this item that I received from Mr. Niyi Adenubi is indeed an original. If I'm privileged and the artist is still alive, I can verify with the artist. If the artist is dead, I can verify with the family or the trust. And there are ways around it. It's not quite formal, it's not quite regulated, but there are ways around it. But what it is that we're dedicated to ensuring that there's confidence in this asset, which of course first has cultural value, maybe financial value, and what lets it be something that's long-lasting is this idea of authenticity and endorsement.
Perhaps I should start with a small story of a time when I wanted to know a little bit more about the Nigerian art scene. And this was some 15 or 18 years ago. and I decided to put together a little bit of research on collectors. The outcome of that was a book still available on Nigerian contemporary art in Lagos private collections. So I visited all the people I knew and people I had never met before. I visited over 40 collectors in Lagos, and they were very generous. They opened the doors of their offices, their sitting rooms, their bedrooms, their toilets, their stores, and I was generally appalled by what I saw. Artworks inside a bathtub, artworks piled one on top of the other, piercing artworks in a room that was infected with all type of animals, insects, rodents, everything. So I thought, here there is a problem. And really there is a problem. Because for other assets, they are easier to, there are less challenges. With artworks, there are many challenges. And in Nigeria, perhaps more than in other places. There are environmental challenges, the weather, the lack of power, because you need to maintain the humidity, and there are structural or infrastructural problems. If now you have an artwork that has been damaged and you want to locate a reliable conservator, you are in trouble, because we have few reliable conservators. If you want to check whether that Benin bronze that you got is really from the 15th century, you don't have a lab that can tell you that it is or it is not. So there are many challenges, infrastructural issues, legal issues. Ugoma has mentioned provenance. This is a huge problem, a huge challenge to have proper provenance. So there are many challenges there. It's not easy. Art also is not very liquid. The art world, you know very well how it's very opaque everywhere. And I agree with Ugoma that perhaps here is even more on structure and more opaque. You don't know. We don't have documentation, or we have little documentation. For instance, if you want to have data on the value of similar works to the one you have or the one you want to buy, where do you go? There are no reliable sources of information. So there are many challenges. But on the other hand, I think there is a great opportunity for collectors or primarily or persons that focus primarily on the aesthetic or artistic value, but there are also opportunities for people who see beyond that, or along with that, the investment value. The African contemporary art market is still very small. If the global art market is around, I think last year it was $65 billion dollars. The last piece of information that I got on the value of the African artwork last year was 61 million. That means we are 1,000th of the global art market. So we are small. But on the other hand, we are growing faster, and there is much more interest than in other places. Perhaps later on, if you want, I can tell you a little bit about the James Shyllon, but yes. Well, this is a very good example of somebody, somebody who thought about what he wanted to do with his collection. Prince Shyllon is probably the collector with the largest collection in Africa. Probably he has, or he says, he has over 6,000 works. Now, and he has some of them of real value, some of them less. But now we have been friends for many, many years, and long time ago, one day talking, what do you want to do with your collection? I asked him, how do you see your collection when you are not here? Do you see dismembered, sold? Your children are happy to have this, and how do you see it? And he told me that he wanted his collection to have a public vocation. He saw himself, and he says that as a guardian, as somebody who is taking care of something that truly does not belong to him, that belongs to all of us, and he wanted to make it public. And that was the beginning of a long conversation that ended up in him donating 1,000 works from his collection and money for the building of the current Shyllon Museum at Pan Atlantic University.